Okay.
가행스나 추공 규성 세아테게 추 강세 추 탐제 세고래 규정 세비 줄라 때문에 정하래 시케고레스.
Yeah, so you heard what he said, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So what he was saying, actually, he's going to take again this the 4 verses, and then he's going to explain it. So he was saying something. I'm going to follow the order in what he said. I don't have the translation. It doesn't matter. So at the beginning in Tibetan, it says whatever phenomena that is produced by or originated from a cause. Yes. Okay. And then
테니 줄라 때문에 정래 세운드잖아 perchayana 마메게 왜때 마메레 때문에 정하다보다 영 추고 줄라 때문에 정래 세운드잖아 추대 리 임바데 예마제라 때문에 용요 바데 펜나 링보세 링보 임메인데 타니 통통라 때문에 링보스 요고 여러와 펜나 때나긴게 추 간디 추데 가래야 도마도티 좀 뜻사 긴게를 땡고 그래 생각 땡요레스.
那当我们说
yes, and so also when we have this expression, whatever phenomena or all the phenomena that arose from causes, there are 2 ways that can explain the way that they arose or they were originated. One is like the light that comes from a lamp, that is one way. And then also when we say that phenomena arise from causes, it can also be another way, which is like, for example, we have long, the concept of being long that comes from, that exists or that is originated by opposition to the concept or the word right. And so they exist because they depend on each other on that point. And so this is the way that we have to understand when it says phenomena arise from causes.
테니 다테게 가르테 말스나 직tin 당 직tin인데 반 디히톨라 추지 인이존데라 테네 땡기지 많이 바지 땡이네 바트리지 땡겨레스 땡 방금 법벌로도 그따다 자와 시랍노니 강세 땡디 많이 비 추인가 여바 많이노 소한 나이게게 땡지 렌요 많이 비 추 땡이네 시메트리지 땡겨레스.
And so what does this show is that whatever phenomena, whatever thing that we can take either from the side of samsara or from the side of beyond samsara, from the moment something is a phenomena, then it cannot not exist or not exist because of interdependence or interdependence. And this goes along the lines of what the Supreme Nagarjuna was saying when he said, there is no phenomena that does not originate or that is not existing in interdependence.
테네 제삼디 자와 시랍 그 슐로가 나니 지금 동보 공세 땡디 많이 비 추인가 여바 많이노 세준 데크데 강게 땡디젠 노해노니 추공 유성 세지 데켄 레와 차데기 레완도.
那这里
And so we have this verse here from the root verses of the Madhyamika from Nagarjuna, and which says there is no phenomena that does not arise in interdependence, or as we have here the translation from Stephen Batchelor, because they are nothing at all which are not contingently emergent. And so this Nagarjuna is saying here that there is all phenomena must arise through interdependence. And so this is actually, we can consider these two first verses from Nagarjuna as a commentary on all phenomena that arose from causes that we find in the Dharma verses. So we can consider that these two verses from Nagarjuna are commenting the passage of the mantra, which says all phenomena that arise from causes.
Tene tada ndo korana padroda ndo
Okay, so now let's go back to the sutra.
chukung jujong de dan judong tengos. Tene tesong dita chukung jujong de da ki 대학 그 죽공 그래요. 띠띠 만다도 마 당구대 추공 조정 대다 그 조정 댕고 공에 봐봐. 대인디 다대 가르서 대다 그 조정 댕고 공에 봐 세야지도 와. 대다 그 조정 그 가르서 거래 세운디나 대다 그 조세야데 다추 줄라스 jo tela teni chung tendi mai be chu kan yu mare song ju chu de da jon tendi ti yimbi ki jumsin ji go ne se ta tendi ti yimbi ki jumsin ji go ne go se ate tangane na go se de tong ba ni dan da ji ba ju te da tendi de ba yimbi jumsin go ne chu de da kan ka tang ba ni re se ti ten ta de da ge ju dong ben go ko yin ba se ate go se ate go ba se tang ba ni dan da ji ba re 대다 그 교통세한테 땡긴 대화 임비 점진이 고니 그 대다 강가때 땅반이 차되고 요래 에스 트리치 땡 요래스
And so here, so we have seen the first thing, that the Chogang Gyujung, so all phenomena that arise from causes, this we have seen. And now Kempo is moving to the next part, which says Tetagi Gyudang Tego Kanyimba. So their causes and whatever is their causes and whatever is their cessation. And so here we are talking about the causes of those phenomena which arose from causes, and we're talking about their cessation. And so here, when we talk about their causes, we're talking about the causes of those phenomena, which, as we have just said before, do only exist as phenomena because they arise interdependently, through interdependence. And so the causes of those specific phenomena that arose from interdependence or through interdependence. Yes, and so what here this part is saying is that because them being existing through interdependence, then they can cease. They can become the cessation. And so here Kempo is saying that when we read the cessation, it actually is a synonym for emptiness. So the cessation that we have here, so this is whatever is the cessation of their causes, this cessation here is to be understood as the emptiness itself. Because whatever is interdependent is necessarily empty as well. So here we can equate cessation and emptiness. And so here what is said is that whatever is the cause of whatever phenomena that arose from causes is necessary emptiness. So this is the point that this part is making.
tene pena 대기 히페 까살때 개성치면 개성 송기데 가장 난긴게 추공 주종세 추탐제 땡디 임바데 수크송 바레스나 대기 히페 송 바레스 고아한테 롱 디고레.
And then the next part says, is so the question that arises is who is saying that, who is exposing that, and so the answer comes in the next verse that says it is the Tathagata who has expounded it, and so we can understand that the phenomena that the phenomena that arose from causes, the fact that they arise from causes, who can be said to have said that? It is the Tathagata.
Tene tendige tene tongni yin sejite suk song baresena gejung chimbu teke song se geju chimbu ke tende song yore se khasam kong de jan ni ma sheba na yi tende kwa tende len chugres.
那就像结合
And so then this quote continues on saying that those phenomena, not the fact that they have a cause now, but that they are emptiness. Who said that? Then it is the great renunciant. So we can understand this part in this way according to what I had said yesterday, so previously.
Tene tangbi tsawa shirab ge sholo ka chik tan da tana.
So please show the verse of the root verses of Madhyamaka.
Tandi tinone sholo ka teke tamala teche tongni mayin be chunga yoba mayin no song do as. O teke tata kongni teda ke yotong tengu kongin ba se ji tik gongman de kya yores.
And so at the end of these 4 verses, we saw the first ones, and the next 2 ones are saying, because of this, there is no phenomena that is not emptiness. And so this second part of this, what Nagarjuna said, is actually commenting the part from the translation of the Dharma that says the cessation of those phenomena.
Tene ta tiki tanda te thadang to zo shiba ina tendi ina tongni go be jumsin kare se tendi ji ta twa de lebi ngoro was.
And so once we have said that, the question that arises is if something is interdependent, what is the reason for it to be empty or to have the nature of emptiness, right? This question then next arises.
Ta yobo kare ina te rong gyola te ni chongbare he se ta kecha tendi cheng yoro was.
那这里呢，就是说，
So what we were saying until now is that whatever object or whatever phenomenon that we have is necessarily reliant on something else, on a cause or something else in order to exist, right?
Ta gyola te ni chongre se pha labjute warang so ta tan jiting pe thamal bo nam ji ngolan nang de ake nong ge nong su te rang che de yures. Warang su ngola te nang de ju ke nong wa ngo bon da tham che de ko che la te ni chongwa de nang de yu de na gyola te ni chong de te ni chongwa de te ne ne ke ja de te she go res.
那这里
And so when we say that things arise or exist through relying on other causes and other on other phenomena in order to exist, what we are actually describing is our ordinary way of seeing things, seeing the phenomena around us, because this is how we perceive things. This is what we can see as ordinary beings. We see that everything that exists around us is existing depending on the cause and on other phenomena. So this is a description of our perception, our ordinary perception.
的。
Tati jula teni chongre, jula teni chire, kecha pa she yung sana. Ngune chek tik karel ten yore sana, jula teni chire, se ju tik tanda te tanda ngoma. No tawara ni chiwa yo mare, sen ten yore.
And so when we say that things depend on causes in order to exist, or that things exist interdependently, we're saying that they arise through relying on causes. But in reality, what this affirmation actually says in reality, if we really look what this says, is that they do not exist at all.
Teni ti tanda te pena chedon dok non la ta kanki jimi jiba tema ji tele jiwirangi yoma jen la rali konde tomba ni te toni shi de payo su songju ti tege ngwa yena kora rongin te jiwa mepa jiwirangi mepa ngabu rongi mepa nipa rongi mepa te re son mi jamne ni no non la te mi song yu res.
那这里另外一个引用的教
And so this is actually what we can read in sutras. And so the sutra that says, whatever arises through conditions has never arisen. And that in itself does not have the nature of having arisen in any way. And whatever is known to rely on conditions is emptiness. And to know this emptiness is to be to have care, or to be aware, to have this awareness. And so this is something that is actually said in by the Buddha in sutras.
Ne tati tanda de tang ko dewo jine je tendi toni ta rongin ki madbe ta je koda ji te ta ya yin.
那用一种容易
And so now I'm going to try to make this point as clear as possible, and to make it in a way that it's easy to understand the fact that everything that exists through interdependence is emptiness, or that it does not have intrinsic nature.
满意。
Pena namju jewu te ni ji se dewu kora yo me se ji te gyo la te ni yo me ya go do as.
所以
And so, for example, if we take a fruit or result, this result can be said to exist because it relies on a cause to exist and to have its existence. And so the fact of saying something, this result exists or not, forces us to establish its existence through the fact of it relying on something else that is its cause.
Ta jewu te gyo la to yure te re se mo bitana jewu rong ko ngo yo ji ji gyo la to yure so gyo yure ke che ni ti ni som no ni da ha ta na toni be ta da ha ko yung res.
And so now thinking about this result, is it a result that exists really, that has an intrinsic existence that relied on a cause in order to become that result? Or is it a result that does not exist and that relied on a cause to become itself, to become the result that it is? So if we think about these two possibilities and we try to see, to find the solution to that, then the fact that that result must be empty, must have the nature of emptiness, will become clear by itself.
Pena Debu rongo ngo yoju che to de sena kecha teri ngo yosana to go mares. Ngo top sai no to go mares. Chen sa ngo yoju che gyol to unya te ni yo mares.
那我们
And so, if we take something that already exists and that intrinsically already exists, it does not need to rely on anything in order to be what it is. So, for any phenomena that has and that exists intrinsically, and then it cannot, by definition, rely on anything else.
Gyol to be jumse de rongo ngo ya togo be
And so the reason for something to need to rely on a cause is in order to for this thing to become what it is. Otherwise, it doesn't need to rely on a cause.
Then rongo ngo mena te to unju to chena mero was.
also
And so if if it does not have any nature, if it does not exist in any way, then there's nothing that needs to be relied upon, right? There's nothing to rely upon in order to create nothing.
Chasa Dewu Jula Ture, Sikecha Hyang, the Winenda, Dewu Korongo, what ten me, Sikecha Tishayuris.
And so that's how we reach to the conclusion that when we say that something relied on its causes, then what we're actually saying is that this thing does not exist intrinsically, does not have any real existence.
Penangaroso Tata Chadid Namjukeja hit Chadid Gong Chak Gonga Latures, Gonga Chak Gonga te Chadil Latures, then the Tombo Kare Chumbare said the Sadit and Hamogo and the Jig Chong Yujre Changit was.
And so there's something similar to that, is the fact of asking ourselves which one from the hen or the egg first arose, because there is one that gives rise to the other, which gives rise to the previous one in turn. And so when we think about which one came first, we think, well, there must be one of these two that came first, but we don't really know because they depend on each other.
我来讲的，
Tata Nasu Chadid Gonga, sing it back.
过一度，
Chade the Gonga Nimbote, Chade Gonga Teni Purwa, Gonga the Alateni Purwa. That Tombo Kare Chumbare said, Tate Chedina, Ha Koyo Mara, Suchi Tenga Chakonga, Yusu Chores Ha Koguna, Saboje Ha Koyo Marawa. Oh, that the Jumsin the Kare Reders, and Nunendana, Chado Gonga Koronteni, Tuji Matupsa, Koron Pagela. Chada Gonga Korang Rong Sat, Rongil than a Madobi Jumsing Goni, then the Kare Tombo Yuba the Hako Matobares.
老说，
And so Campbell re-explained that we have this the chicken and the egg, and so which one came first. And so when we try to solve this problem, then it's very difficult, and usually we don't find the right answer to say either the egg came first or the chicken came first. And the very reason for which it is impossible to come to a conclusion is because they both of them depend on each other in order to exist. And so they did not have a real existence by their own, on their own, and which is why we cannot reach to a conclusion to say this one came first.
Tane Tedam Sampeke Pena Ringbo to Tong Ye do Yamase, and Dick Young Gunihiana, Tambo Kari Tobres in Naso Hakotogo Yomares, Metobi Jimsi Karisana, Nika Madup, Korang Nesula Tome Jimsi Guni, Madobres. Ta ye you are to the Pensical doing it top there. Tanyela doing it to bad lady urity, Tanyela Tony Dropachi Yinis on the Rongong or the Madoba Imba, the Tony drop 10 Yinis on the Lichen Hako to Grace.
再比如
And so similarly, we can also analyze things like long and short, left and right. And if we ask ourselves which one of these pairs came first, either the long or the short or the right or the left, then it is something to which we cannot have an answer, right? And the very reason for which we do not have an answer is because in reality, neither of them really exists. And so they only exist conventionally by opposition to something else, to their counterpart. And because of being only conventionally existing, then we can reach the conclusion that they do not have real existence. And so when we talk about the interdependence and we see the things, the phenomena that when we say that every phenomena arises or exists through its independence, then it is it is what a phenomena that we can see, that we can say that they arise through independence. And at the same time, because they arise through causes and conditions, then this forces us to reach the conclusion that they cannot have a real existence, an intrinsic existence. And so it is exactly what this Dharma mantra is explaining, putting forward, that all phenomena, because of them being existing through independence, they are in reality not existing.
Ndeke ndoke kap ke ndoloke ta pena nyen thuji thikwa tam thomba damba ye ronje te thikwa tam thombe ke tendi yana juni tana oma betawa ta thikwa chembo ke thomo mai betawa tandi ji ten de tsik je ba je ten yore se dam chimbo ji ten re se je ndo chibu ko here ma to ngene da nda nga da jarba yana judi je cha che tanda de on de ten yo sares.
And so what I have said or explained until here is staying from within the context of Suprayana, right? Because we were staying in the tradition of the Sutrayana. We, like I explained before, how these 4 verses or the Dharma mantra can be understood from the point of view of the Shavakas, according to the 4 noble truths, how it can be understood by the Pratika Buddhas according to 12 interdependent links, and how in the for the Madhyamika it is presenting the specific view of the great vehicle. And so as I was saying at the very beginning, these 4 verses or this these 4 verses or this mantra is actually combining in itself nearly all the teachings of the Buddha. And so it's kind of a great summary of whatever the Buddha has taught. And so even if here what I have explained is always maintaining it at the level of Sutrayana, if we want to explain it and see it from the point of view of the Tantras, then there are explanations that can be given of it according to each of the 4 levels of Tantras. 4 classes of Tantras.
In the Nyon Chinson book and Dike Tendiki Nga de Ta Peke to the Chukun Juzon Tedane, he be Cholokan Deke, the 추게 담 템포에 손에 담 템포 세운데 담 잡는다 추 강가 그 단다 힘부 톱지 수드니 지기 지기 제바제 그다 좀 내는 손주 추 단다 강가 데 지기 지기 땡 요래 손 요래스
所以呢，
And so it is for that reason that Jamikin Zawangpo was saying that this mantra, or as we can read it in Tibetan, whatever phenomena arose from causes, etc. So these 4 verses, they are actually a great condense, yes, it condenses everything of the teachings of the Buddha. And to whatever, so when we say that it's a great, it condenses everything, it means that whatever the Buddha has taught can be reduced or can be included within these 4 verses. And so he was saying that, Jamikinzo was saying that this condenses everything the Buddha has said.
呢，讲扬清者望波大师
Yeah.
免了。
디 점싱 거네 단데 빼 메시베 짜 첨부 근데 임비 점싱 다 가정 공도 쉬바래 빼나 단데 점데 마 송규데 쾌띠 약동 그 초가당 라니 마 송바라 와스
所以
And so it is for that reason that this mantra is actually so precious and so sacred. And just like we saw yesterday, because Kimbo is teaching the Sutra of Independent Origination. So as we have seen before in the Sutra, then this mantra was taught by the Buddha in the context of a ritual in order to build stupas, right?
빼나 최딘 자동 거는 최딘들 빼나 최총 그 체디 줄으라서 통통 들리더라 와다 줄으라 체게 빠드 던지외
有人了，开幕了。
체게
And so Kim was saying that, yes, so in the sutra, the Buddha was saying, even if you build a stupa that is as small as a curara fruit,
那时候
so curara fruit, we have an illustration here. This is a curara.
줄으라서 최디 최총은 더 좋삼지 근데
So
소킹라
this is-
캅정지 돌라다다 메도 바글라게 메도 잠지 노 던데지 야니 총총 던데지 야니 노로라 다다 너니 티기지바 아 이게 디 송교 던데 쪽이야 던데 잠지라야 다 쓰놈라 삼지 메샤바 요송도 와스
And so Buddha was saying that even if you build a stupa that is as small as a curara fruit, that has on top of it as the different kind of circles that are as small as this flower, and if we put in it a live tree that is as small and as thin as a needle, and then we include in it this mantra of the Dharma mantra, then the Buddha was saying that the merits generated would be inconceivable, right?
나서
닌데지 잉비게 메메든다 내세게 사초라 닌데지 최티 충충지 얘네 기능라 송때 디니야 쭈바 충충 늦었다지 제발라테네 쇠남지 소체정 쇠남 체정이 얘기나 디쇠남지 떡지고네 플라 총바긴지 디네 총바기로 얘기로 송도아스.
And so the Buddha was saying that if we build a stupa that is as small as that, and that we put in it and the mantra, the Dharma mantra in it, and we put it at erect it at a place that is around where people live, and so just doing a stupa that is that small will make us accumulate merits that are enough to make us be reborn in the realm of Brahma.
데네 가서 최대인들 가능서 사고 첨부 던데 sambaji zo naula zongyo tenda mamboji twina tene sanam kaset tupsareta 텔레테니 쳬바조 투레스.
And so by thinking about the merits that we can accumulate in that way, then we can have an idea about how much merit we could accumulate if we build a stupa that is about the size of our size as humans, and then we put in it a live tree that is proportional to that, and then we put many more mantras and dharanis inside it, and not just this one, but many more. And so we can imagine through that how much merit can be generated, right?
Any that day, then chudi tsela pen chudi sarong khagu sejita wata doji de chudi sejita janala ta pe chudi chimodo so se yena ta no no tene songyuk ta dig ha to puni songyuk de cheba yena ta so no kase jungde he magora was.
And we also don't even need to describe how much merits can be generated by building stupa that are much bigger, like the one in the Bodhnath stupa, or the one in Bodh Gaya, or the great stupas that exist in China, and then fill them with all these mantras.
Teneti pena tata tandini yope ha de la ngola om don yola sohas yo ma de koro ha de
공다 연결 수준은
생소해.
송께서
다른 데니 예다마 해도 프라바스니 데나 요에베게 도 코라나나 다 응수 요에베게 하텔라 ngola om yola soham도 then ngola om yedama se omdo yola sohas yo mare dikin dela denda wala chaigana dela rinha se gres rinhas main the rinhas pagres.
And so here in this sutra we have this the mantra itself, which starts with yedama etc., does not have om at the beginning, neither soha at the end, and because of that it's not dharani, but it's called ringa. I don't know in Sanskrit what it is, but it's awareness mantra, vidya mantra, yes.
Tenin dela trutup namji mengal tang ngola om dang yola sohajan lo guyuris songha sejit chagris.
And then through relying on the crucial instruction that were given by realized siddhas or mahasiddhas, then we add om at the beginning and soha at the end. And then when we practice it in this way, then it is known to be a Guya mantra or secret mantras.
Tene ngolayang namorena taryaya om yedama se adon yola soha yodevayana tene zunha segres.
Namo.
And so if we add Namo Ratnatrayaya at the beginning and then Soha at the end, Namo Ratnatraya Om and then Yedharma etc. and that we add Soha at the end, then this is known as a Dharani mantra.
And they had their own part Namo Ratnatraya no Namura Nataya Matopa Jakedo Pukir Juya Yomarwa.
And so when we practice it in this way, as a Dharani mantra, then we keep Namo Ratnatraya, which actually means I pay homage to the three jewels, without actually translating it, because we're reciting as a mantra, right?
What indigenous Then the Tsar read Dombalata, Tangu, Chetting into Sonam Kandi or so, the Dele Chang, Dablo Mombo. Sing it away.
There's Sabolemido Kembo Karangi Songe.
It's not very clear.
Sing it.
Goido Tanda.
Last of that indicate Zungha de that Tangu Nason Cheting Yang Zungha de Yigi, knowledge on the son of Chimp, which you song for us. That initiative is Zungha and really Dombala, Deda Lake and son of Chimuris.
And so we said that building a stupa in this way brings a lot of merits, didn't we? And if we practice this mantra as a Dharani mantra, then it is said, the Buddha says that the merits that are going to be accumulated are much bigger and much greater even than the ones that we can obtain through building a stupa.
So
then in this Zonghan Delatini, Tapena not dropped down, Cho dropped in Chodo Tomo Murot Kanga, Dutung with Choga Kanga, the Joan Chinson Bobik, the top confusion on the Mayure, then the number don't know by the Tana Zeta. Dick is Zonghan Deleta, which Pechi made the one, which carried
And so this Dharani mantra, using it, we can accomplish wealth, we can accomplish the supreme siddhis, we can accomplish anything that we want. And it is for that reason that Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo has made practices and rituals in the compendium of sadhanas in the Drupal Kundu that puts out and spell out the way to reach or to accomplish every of these siddhis. And so there's, as he was saying, there is no mantra that is more precious and more sacred than this mantra itself. Yeah, and then I forgot to say that, and so Kempo was saying that if some of you are interested into looking at it and practicing it, then you can consult the Drupal Kundu, and if you have received the instruction, then you can use that as in order to do practices as well.
Then ta Luke going chweting yen zong pya ta nga andele then just take it that kasang around kasong drink around to hear there then by yenda with the tendi and juni the tong by ni tan to gam chi nyam so by na then that so sanam hama to so ke durung ya teni mere jobu sonje ko ho to be sanam tan sa to yores.
And so we said that through our body we can build stupas that will contain this mantra. We can, through our speech, we can practice dharanis, that we can practice this mantra as a dharani. And more than that, if we can think about the meaning and understand the meaning that is presented, like we have explained it before in the previous days, such as the meaning that corresponds to the Four Noble Truths, the meaning as it is linked with the 12 interdependent links, and then the meaning as it is linked to the emptiness. And if we are able to practice, not only do things with our body and speech, but actually practice the meaning that this dharani conveys, then there's no way that this merit can be compared to any of the previous merits that we described, because we will be able to accumulate merits that are going to lead us to full Buddhahood. Okay, so that was for his explanation according to the Mahayana. I don't know if we should make a pause now or if we should continue. I don't know how it is for you. Yeah, and then maybe if my translation was not clear at some point and you want to ask things, then please don't hesitate. Okay, yeah, so maybe we make a short break of 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Is it okay?
Okay, good.
Sure.
Yeah, see you then. Okay. I don't know if we finish this 5-10 minutes or not. But yes, okay, so we're all here. So I think that now what would be interesting to do is that you open again your translation or look at what you did last time and then reread it in the light of Kempo's explanation now. And yeah, and then see if there is anything that you would like to change or not. Maybe nothing, because the words are just words and all this explanation is hidden behind the words. But at very least, maybe if you are aware of all that, then you are going to make some choices that might be slightly different than last time. So maybe it could be nice that we look again at the translation that we did and see if, and compare it and reread it in the light of these explanations of the Kempo. So this is actually something that I saw already. I remember I was asked to correct some translations from French in English. And so I looked at commentaries, I brought this kind of explanation, and then I showed it to the French translator, and then he told me, well, okay, that's great. But what do I do with that in my translation? How am I supposed to put all this meaning into these words? And then, yeah, I mean, we are limited by the words, but we can choose many different things. And so maybe there are some things that we can adjust if we want or not, according to what has been explained. Yeah, and then if you want to kind of share things from what would have changed or not in the translation that you have done, or ask others or anything.
I think, can I just say something? When you do written translation like this, that is, I mean, this condensed words of the Buddha that contains so much meaning.
Yeah.
The way that for me is that I have to, like you said, collect all this information, gather it, and then write my translation version, but then let it sit and then come back to it. I can't just, it has to kind of simmer in me first.
Mm-hmm.
It's a slow process.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's for you the same.
Yeah. I hear a lot from from other translators. Actually, yeah. For me personally, it's not like that, because for me it's, I don't know, I don't have the thing, but I hear most translators, even the greatest, do that and actually wait for a few days and then come back to it.
And then I have another question, I believe that, for instance, our languages are really limited still in terms of how we're presenting this precious Dharma. And I've seen in English how some words come together, like for instance, Hilinor Rinpoche did that. He kind of combined words, or he put a little, what do you call this, slash? Not slash. Mm-hmm. I don't know the word right now. And then also, we just recently had a Sanskrit translation and we saw the version. And also the professor, Dr. Matthias, he worked the same way, just trying to work the language in a way that kind of fits the vastness of the meaning, the vastness of the meaning. And in Spanish, for example, that's really hard because we don't even have that tradition, So I find myself always a little bit, we can say that we can translate the words, but this whole meaning, there's something that carries it, at least. It's still, I don't really know how to convey that.
Yes, yeah, I think it has to do with the fact that most of the information that we gathered about Buddhism came from English, because that's where most translations are done. And because of that, all the feeling and all the links and everything that we do and we have in our heads is in English already. So then when we come from that language to our language, we feel that we're limited because we do not have all this web of ideas that are linked together in our language. And actually, I feel the same when I read translations, because all my studies I did in Tibetan. So when I look at the translation, I feel like I'm losing half of the meaning. And I have a really hard time to read translations, even though I know that I should. And as a translator, it would really help me to see the solutions of others, etc. I still have, when it comes to reading for myself, I really have a lot of trouble reading translations because of that. So I really understand what you're saying. And it's true that different languages have different kind of abilities from that point of view, because English is a language that allows to kind of concatenate many different words in order to create new words. In linguistics, we say that the processes of lexicalization is much more straightforward and easy. Whenever there's new technology or new things that arise, that are built or are created, English people have it's very easy for them to create new words. And in our languages, French, Portuguese, and Spanish, it's very difficult because we don't work that way. The language doesn't work that way. And yeah, so I think it's basically the fact that we need to build all the culture, all the links of the ideas of Buddhism into our own languages. Then people will understand that. But the language themselves also have, yeah, a little bit of different possibilities. They accommodate more or less these things. For example, Chinese would be very difficult because a word for them is one syllable, point. And yeah, but I think that it's mostly a question of habit. And yeah, I would say that as for this kind of thing that people usually say that Tibetan is a language that is sacred because it offers so much possibilities of understanding. I think that when Tibetans translated from Sanskrit, they thought exactly the same thing. They thought that their language is so limited, and the Sanskrit language allows so much more openness, etc. It's just that languages are ambiguous at different points. And so our language has the same thing.
Drupchen, I don't know if this is, I mean, if it's relevant or if it's something for us to discuss, because that was about terminology and choices of words from the Tibetan into English or whatever our languages. Because I noticed something that caught my attention in the text in the Tibetan, when it says like Toni Kangshe Deni Payo Pao. So here they translate Payopa as mindfulness. Yes. And I've always heard that Payo would be carefulness, and that Jempa being mindfulness, Jejing vigilance or whatever, and then Payo carefulness. Yeah. So and it seems very different for me, like Payo from Jempa seems like very different things. So I was wondering, because it gives a completely different meaning to the text. But he in the English he used mindfulness, but the Tibetan word was Payo. So
and actually, if you noticed well, if you really paid attention, you would see that what the Khenpo said was not Bayo Pao. He said Bayo Je, which is the imperative of do.
Be mindful. Careful.
Be careful.
Yeah.
But yeah, be careful. It sounds a little bit strange. It does not really give all the meaning of Bayo. So Bayo, I think that this specific verse comes in a context where someone asked the Buddha, how can I be careful about my activities in my life or whatever? And then the Buddha brings this into another context and says, okay, if you really want to be careful, then you must do it this way, which is by bringing the interdependence and emptiness. And so in that context, carefulness makes sense. But when it's taken out of its original context, like usually people do, then it might sound a little bit weird. And I think that may be why translators prefer to say, well, carefulness here would sound something out of its context. It would be a little bit unusual, and so maybe they try to make something that is accommodating more, that is more general. Something I don't really know, but it's true that my reaction was to say something along the line mindfulness, and didn't actually see the translation in English that was there on the screen, but I think it was also something like that. I don't know.
It was mindfulness in the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, bachelor's translation.
Yeah, but definitely we really need to pay attention, especially as translators. We definitely need to be careful about that, because especially when it comes to things that have an impact on how people think and how they deal with their lives, and then the words that we choose have very great influences, and they will have a lot of ripple effect on people's way of thinking and people's practice, etc. So it's really important to really be mindful about that.
That word in itself in Spanish is very difficult, Pagyu. Yes, it's very difficult because it's not mindfulness. We cannot say, you know, when we say careful, it implies something that is not so much, careful is being alert, right? There's a caution to it. But Pagyu, I feel it also has a care. You have this quality of mindfulness that you're carefully aware, and that is very difficult to convey in Spanish, especially in verse.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, this care, this kind of taking care of what is happening. Yeah, this is really difficult to remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that if we think about Drempa, Shishing, and Payur, like sometimes they are put together in the teachings.
Yes.
And it seems to me, at least, that Payur has a lot to do with your conduct, like the way you move and the way you interact and the way you act, actually, as well as, whereas like Drempa and Shishing, Drempa is more like at the mind level, something like that, like really being mindful and and then because of course of this mindfulness, then you have this carefulness. Carefulness is a hard word, yeah. And also in Portuguese, it's not so easy because. But anyway, so for me, it is different to think about like Payur or carefulness and Drempa as mindfulness. So whatever.
Right. Yes, I think Payur is like you do things with care. That renders the most for me the meaning of Payur. To do things with care. And yeah, so it's like the typical image that we have of Theravada monks or Snatan. He is really doing things with care, with Payur.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Related to that, maybe if we can use for example, what word would you use in French for this example that Sibel gave? And maybe we can think in Portuguese and Spanish and say the words because maybe it helps.
Yes. In French, I think I always struggle with that also. And I always ended up saying things that worked in the context I was in because the whole context was there. But in order to make it only kind of something that is generalizable, then I think that it would be very difficult. But this is something that I always try to kind of pay attention to. Whenever I hear Payur, I try to make it so that the readers actually understand what is there, not context. But yeah, the only way that I found was contextualizing it, like doing things with care. Yes, then it worked in that context with this tendance to do something with care. But as soon as you say carefulness, then you lose that connotation. Yeah. So, and actually, this reminds me of one of the strategies that was put forward in the Tibetan rules of how to translate things, and one of them was to translate according to the context. So, in some context, one word in Sanskrit we would translate it in one way, and some others another way. So, I think that is, yeah, I would not hesitate in using many words in many different contexts so that the meaning gets through.
Because I usually prefer the French translations, although I know much less French than English, because it's easier to put the Portuguese in, like find the meaning in Portuguese.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Yeah, but yeah, I can tell you that whenever I was hearing translations in French about Payur, I felt a little bit uncomfortable. And when I myself was translating, I also felt uncomfortable and ended up making paraphrases or that were not like straight and square in order to pass the meaning.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's true that French language and Portuguese and Spanish are much more related to each other as Latin languages than English. And then English also has this kind of great advantage. Sometimes I joke and say that they're cheating because they throw all the French vocabulary on top of the German vocabulary that they already have. So they have the best of both worlds, and so they have so many possibilities in their vocabulary. Yeah, because for a few centuries it was French that was spoken at the courts, so they imported all the all the Latin vocabulary, not really necessarily French, but all Latin vocabulary. And because of their German roots, then they have also all that vocabulary, and so it makes it way easier. Yeah, and this is something that I saw also when I was working at Padmakara with the translators on the English side and the French side. Every time I brought something, a question like that, the English, in a matter of a minute or two, they had the solution. And the French always said, well, let me think it over and then come back in a few days.
Yeah, English seems more standardized already.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bit easier, I guess. But that's why I guess thinking in the Latin languages is a bit more of a challenge, and then
Yes.
but it will be a lot of help for us, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yes. Yeah. But it's good that it's good to look at the other Latin languages and what they do, so we can get some good ideas.
And maybe thinking a little bit about terminology, I wanted to ask you, Drupchen, because I noticed, like in your translation, I think the Kempo said, or at least it was in the text, they used like a very common, like philosophical term, which is madrupa. Madrupa. So, and I usually translate as you did, like doesn't have inherent existence. Some texts, they say, like they use the not established, something that's not established.
Yeah.
So, but that is like, what does not established mean? It's really difficult.
Yeah, and this actually comes from the logic from Pramana.
Mm-hmm.
Because you talk about valid cognition, not valid cognition, establishing a perception as valid cognition, etc. And so when you say something is not true or does not exist, you're going to say it is not established, understood afterwards as a valid object of perception. That's what it actually means. Yeah.
Okay, so in this context, then it would be much better to just use like it doesn't have inherent existence, madrupa.
Yeah, yeah. And then as you have seen, I hesitated between saying inherent existence and not really existing.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, inherent existence is already a jargon.
And
then maybe if we say not really existing, then the meaning gets easier.
Okay.
So yeah, this is again, I hesitate. I really don't know how to. I don't have a kind of solution that works for everything.
Yeah, I think it maybe depends on the audience also.
Yes. Yeah.
Because of course, if you're talking to people who never heard any Buddhist teaching whatsoever, then of course you would try to avoid jargons.
Yes.
And translate as closely as possible to what they could relate to.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And so this
I don't know.
some other consideration, which is that even, for example, Kempo, even if he wants to say something that seems very simple and very obvious to him, because he has been immersed in this jargon for more than 10, 20 years, he's going to use it anyway. And so he intends his sentence to be very obvious and very matter-of-factual. But if we translate literally, and then it's ending up very philosophical, very complicated. And so this is something that that I try to, the best of my possibilities, to take into account and to make sure that the tone of what the person is saying also gets through.
But to be able to do that, like you really need to have a good, a deep understanding in order to find the exact word, like to translate the jargon into colloquial language, you really need to know exactly what the jargon means.
Yes.
So otherwise, I don't know, it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, it depends how much you have studied it, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you ask me to translate on anything about Vajrayana and Tantras, etc., I would be completely lost because I never studied that formally. So it really depends how much knowledge you have.
Okay.
And yeah, this is, I mean, we have to accept that we have limitations as translators. We do the best we can, but yeah, it's never going to be perfect. Otherwise, if we really want to do a perfect translator, then we need to have exact same knowledge as the author himself or the speaker. And that never happens. Or maybe, yes, in the old times in Tibet, then the translators were waiting until they have the realization of what they're going to translate, then yes. And even then they relied on panditas to help them out. Okay, so just out of curiosity, after having heard this explanation of the Kempo, does it make any difference when you reread your translation, when you reread those words? Would you do things differently, or you just keep it as they were before?
I think something similar than what, I don't remember your name, but you said about having to settle down first, because it's like, I feel, okay, the words are like the right words, but there's so much meaning behind it. So maybe just take some time, at least me, to find a better way to give more meaning, somehow take it closer.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course there's something that is very nice for us in this situation is the structure of the sentences in Tibetan, in the original, whatever language that is, because it is sentences are built in a certain way that limits your expressibility, what you want to express. Even though you would like to put all the meaning in your translation, you're limited by how the sentence is structured, how it is built up. And so, yeah, that's I find it nice because even though I know that there's all this meaning, I know that this is the limits until which I have to go. I do not have to put all the meaning in it. I have this kind of natural barrier or frontier that is the sentence, the actual sentences. And that's the only thing that I can do is try to make it so that if the reader wants to go in the direction of that explanation, I do not block it by using a word that prevents this, going in that direction.
How do you feel about putting those ellipses? You know, when you put the word, an extra word in the verse, I always feel a little bit scared of that.
Yes. So actually, I think that Geshe Tundenjiba, in one of his talks in the Tadra Translation and Transmission Conference in the States, he gave a very good solution, which is that if, like, for example, in Tibetan, if you want to say, or we can even take Spanish and Portuguese compared to French. If I want to say, I am eating, I can totally leave aside any subject. It does not mean that the subject is not there. It does not mean that when I translate to French, which requires a present subject, whatever the case, even in the case of it's raining, in French, you have to put a subject, a fake subject, grammatical subject as they call it, but it needs to be there. And so in this kind of situation, if you are in a language that allows not to have any subject, and you translate it in a language that does need one, then you're completely free to add it. That is completely okay. You do not need to put any parentheses in it or square brackets or anything. It's just saying the same thing. It's just that the language towards which you're translating has this kind of structure that requires you to add some things that were implicit in the original language. So that is for one thing. And then when it comes to additions of the context or knowledge that you need to have in order to understand it, etc. So these are really additions. It's like if it is written this and that, and in the translation, if you just put in this and that doesn't make sense, but you have to put this occasion and that occasion, then yeah, it's not really clear whether occasion is great enough a change in order to justify to put brackets, because it's also something very generic. But if you want to say in this teaching and that teaching, then maybe it's something that you're really adding. Then you might consider putting into brackets or putting a note saying, well, actually, there was only this and that written and something like that. And so I think that looking at how our language is structured and looking at how we need to write things in order for the reader to actually understand anything. So as long as we are within that boundary, we can add things, there's no problem. We can add subjects, we can add objects, we can add words, there's no problem. And it's not adding anything, it's just making obvious something that was implied and was already there. That's what Ngejitone Jimbo was saying.
I think, for instance, in Tibetan, we have the de, right? All the time. De pointing to what was said before, but
Yes.
we don't speak like that in our languages. They write in shorthand,
Yes.
and we have to unravel it a little bit.
to
So that is our
yeah.
challenge also.
Yeah. So for this kind of things, then you're just saying the same thing. There's absolutely no change, and so there's no need to kind of justify yourself or make notes or make it something that stands out with brackets or something like that. You're just saying the same thing in a different culture, in a different language. Yeah. Yeah, I found this really very helpful. Yeah, and then especially when we're translating orally, we always have this temptation of adding things and adding more context so that the reader or the listener understands what we understand. And even today, I did it many times. I don't know if you noticed, but yeah, I added many things.
And I think the teachers don't always like that.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, yeah, I try to limit myself to the maximum, because otherwise it ends up like I saw once. I know that once in England there was a teacher who came, and the translator was known to be to like to talk a lot and etc. He understood. He's educated. He's a Kempo. But when he translated, people came to him, and so the teacher was saying something like one sentence, and then he would go on for 10 sentences or something like that. And then people came to him and said, well, we're not here to listen to you, we're not here to listen to him. So of course, yeah, I try to limit to the maximum, but yeah, when I really see that, yeah, when I imagine that my public is not going to have the cues in order to understand that, then sometimes I permit myself to add things, but yeah, I don't really feel comfortable about that. Even, but by written, I think that it would be better to write notes or to write something in the introduction or an annex or something like that. We don't clutter the translation. Yeah, this is also something that comes from Kempo David Karmachopel. He did that in his new translation of the Bodhisattva. He wrote, yeah, quite a big chapter that is meant to contextualize the Bodhisattva into the modern world, so that the modern reader can actually relate to what was written so many centuries ago.
Another thing, like going back to the translation, when we, for instance, have something written in verse, like the Bodhisattva, or even these 4 verses of Dependent Arising, I've heard even some Kempos tell me that, like, once I was working with a Kempo and he said, well, I cannot really know what this specific passage means unless I read a commentary and unless I have teachings about it. So it's really, I don't think it's, because verse has the double function of being a mnemonic tool, right? So for people to memorize. So a lot of meaning is contained in very few words. And I don't think we can possibly try to, even in our languages with their limitations, because I don't think the Tibetan conveys it all. Otherwise it wouldn't be verse. You would need like to extend the meaning. So maybe we need to be as faithful as possible to those words and let a teacher or a commentary clarify the underlying meaning. I don't know.
Yes, that's true. Exactly. Yeah, and about that, it's true that yes, Tibetan verses tend to kind of eat up half of the sentence, or the relation words, etc. And it has also a kind of a practical and a historical reason, which is that in Tibet, paper was very scarce, and so you wanted to write a maximum of meaning on a minimum of paper. And but it's true that especially for root texts, unless you follow a specific commentary by a specific author, you're faced with ambiguities that you cannot you're not able to solve. And so many times, I don't know all translations, but many translations, I was thinking about the Bhagavatam, say this translation was made according to that commentary, according to that author. And so it kind of settles a lot of difficulties. Because it's like the very good example on that is the praise, the 21 praises to Tara. I was working on that, and so there are places where all the commentators have a lot of difficulties, because the words simply don't seem to make sense and to be able to fit together. And then I found this commentary by Jitun Taranatha, and he was commenting it from the point of view of the Tantras. And he will, each of these words on the homages were actually mnemonic kind of words that were put together in order to remember specific practices. And so looking from that angle, then it all made sense all at once. I was like, wow, okay, so this is what was missing from the beginning. But then after you have that, and then after you try to translate it, and then I still don't know how to go about it. Because in many translations, many contexts, you can use this 21 taras just from the point of view of Sutrayana, not at all Tantra. And so it's actually, I don't think it is, originally, I don't remember if it is a sutra or tantra or if it is shastra, but you can use it like Kempo was saying about this Dharma. You can use it from the point of view of Sutrayana, etc. And then you still have to make sense of it in one way or another. And then that was again another dead end in which I ended up, because I found that the solution was in the explanation from the Tantrayana. But then when I was translating it, then I still didn't know how to fit it. But that's when the translation of, the tradition and the transmission of one Kempo to another, and then the oral transmission in commentaries are really helpful, because they kind of, at least they take away from you the responsibility of having to choose one solution in one ambiguity context rather than the other. And there are many times where accommodating all of these understandings is impossible. Another good example is the Minpo Rinpoche's commentary on the 7-line prayer of Guru Rinpoche. He commented in 4 or 5 different ways. And if you try to make one single translation that accommodates all these interpretations, it's quite impossible. So we have to make some choice at one point. And then again, that's when translators become betrayers. Okay.
I had a quick question, Drupchinla, about how, for instance, in the first class, you gave us a lot of information on the slides, you know?
Yeah.
And so when we look at it on our own, and if we have questions, what do you wish to do? Do we send you questions? Do we have a group place where we have questions? Or, you know, some things, like one of the things was from Nagarjuna that came up, and I'm still,
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you prefer? Or
what we can do is kind of have a place where we can gather all of that, and then when we have enough, we can make a session only on that. But yeah, it would be good if I have it beforehand, so I can prepare and then ask temples, because most probably I won't have the answer.
yeah, because what I see is that our classes are really rich. We're going to have a lot of information. So from there, just to make sure that we don't lose some of the things that come up for ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then yeah, about the generally for these classes, my idea was to like we said before, to take quotes that are, or things that are very well known and very used, and then ask the temple to explain it, and then see the temple's explanation, and then study it together that way. So I'm going to try to make a list of these things and then to choose from that. But if you have any suggestions, it would be even better, because then it will really kind of, if you already have questions about how to understand a specific, some quotes, or it can be kind of verses of related to practice or anything, then it would be nice to do something that is actually going to say something to you, not just give you some random information. And so if you think of any quote or passages that you would like to go through, then please send it to me, and then we can organize it so that one Kempo explains the meaning to us. And so that was generally what I wanted to go to do. And then, like I said, also, I would like to go through this story of ocean particle in the past life of the Buddha, when he generated bodhicitta for the first time, like Jimmy Kindermuchi was telling us to study. So I have this small passage. It's about 2-3 pages. Most probably it will take us a few sessions to go through it. And so I will ask one Kempo to explain it, and then after we can do one session on that, one session on other quotes, and then come back to it, and then do it like that until we end it. So yeah, if you have anything that you would like to hear explained, or anything like that, then please don't hesitate to send it to me, to write it down, so that we can use that for these sessions. Okay, so next time, I think that we still have enough. Maybe it was because it took so much time with this technical problem with my computer. We need to reinstall it. But maybe, I don't know if you would like to hear the Kempo's explanation about the Four Noble Truths and the 12 interdependent links, or if the video is enough for next time. Because I know that my translation was, at that time at least, it was really not good. So the video that I sent, maybe if you feel that I could redo it, then I will do it with pleasure next session. But otherwise, we can also move to something else, as you prefer.
I don't know if others don't mind. I think I don't have anything to say about your translation at that time, but I think it's nice. I like the format that we did today, because it brings maybe questions that we can after discuss, like this, like those we had today.
Mm-hmm.
So unless the others feel that something else would be more interesting, for me, it would be nice if we could go through those.
Okay. So one vote for.
I would like to go through them also.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, 3. Yeah, I mean, we don't really need to have an answer right now. We can decide afterwards also, as long as I have enough time to prepare more. Okay. So maybe we can do that next time, and then after so next week we continue with Kingo's explanations. Yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, you must have seen also this sutra. It's quite short. There's just one paragraph or two before the actual Dharani, and then one paragraph or two after it. Quite short. And so it's kind of also nice to see that actually this Dharani that we recite every day in our practice, it actually comes from there, and then it's. And I find it interesting, at least, to see its origin in that way. So yeah, and it has been translated by 84,000. So yeah, this is also something like a general thing that we used to see, is that when you ask the Khenpo to explain a sutra or any teaching syllable by syllable, just like they usually do in Shedas, you end up having explanations that many times go against the translations that you find of them. For example, in 84,000, the translation that you have of this sutra have many places that do not correspond to what the Khenpo is explaining. And at the same time, Khenpo is going to say, well, this translation looks great. And at the same time, when you ask himself, when he does translation into English, then he would do things that if someone else did, and then I translate him back what was said, he would say, oh no, that's absolutely not a translation. So I think that we really have a place here as translators. Khenpos are very good at knowing the meaning and studying, etc. But then when it comes to translation, then it is a different skill, a different job altogether. And so we really need to be kind of, yeah, there's really something that should be done, and there's a place for us to actually do something and contribute. Not that we could ask any Khenpo who is there to translate, and then the translation would come out perfectly. And so, yeah, so this is something that we have seen also when we did Dharma Sadhar since the beginning. Whenever we had Khenpos explain the translation, and then we compared to what was translated by 84,000, then let's say at about every 2-3 sentences, there was something that was different. Sometimes it was something that really made a big difference in the understanding, sometimes not so much, but there was always many different things. And so as translators, as training, if you are just readers, then I would not even mention that. But since we are here to train as translators, I think it's really good to train our eye too, to see where are things that should be improved, not in order to criticize, but to improve ourselves. And so to know this is something that usually could be translated better. So this is something to which I need to be careful about. And so having this mindset, I think it's really good to look at those translations as well. And so whenever you read translations and you have the Tibetan or you hear the original, try to be skeptical and try to think, okay, what if there's this, once I was looking at a program on the television about forensics, and then the best forensics scientist was saying, whenever someone comes to me and asks me, please prove that this person is guilty, or please prove that this person is not guilty, his way of approaching it is trying to prove the opposite of what the person wants. And that's how he came to become the best in his field. And so whenever you look at translations, try to, of course, appreciate all the qualities, but try to see also where there might be some differences and might be some things, and then question them. And then most likely many times you will end up learning something that you will see that you were mistaken at the beginning, and then many other times you will also see that things could be improved as well. And so it goes both ways. But it's good to keep this critical eye when we read translations. I've translated.
I have a question. At this beginning stage, should we like try to think of maybe say the words in the Latin languages, or do you think it's too disruptive if we just start, like if you instead of use some French words in the translation, or maybe like translated a part of the teaching in French, and let's say then we can think about it in Portuguese and Spanish, or that's maybe for a later stage of the training.
So you mean, when do you actually get rid of, no, I'm not sure I understood what you meant to say. Let's say we have a text. Then,
No, like if today you spoke, let's say you're translated from Tibetan to English, but later after the English, let's say you thought about it in French, and then maybe we collectively thought about it in Portuguese and Spanish.
yes,
I don't know if maybe it's too complicated, or
to try to have these different point of views in order to get the best translation and think of all the issues that are there. Yeah, it's true that it sounds like something that would kind of bring up all the problems, even those we don't think about. It's true, but I think at least, I think it would require quite a lot of time and quite a lot of.
Yeah, maybe it's an experiment, but at some point maybe.
Yes, yeah. I mean, for me, when I translate in English, I'm completely aware that my English is very limited, and I'm almost sure that I'm making mistakes and improprieties and these kind of things. So for me, it's much easier for me if I have to translate, even if I have to translate and give it as an English translation. If I really want to be well done, I would first do a translation in my own language, and then try to translate that into English. And because then I'm sure that all the nuances that I get from the Tibetan, I am able to put down in writing, and then that I will try to put it into English afterwards. So I think it's for me it makes more sense in my language.
Okay.
But to bring out inconsistencies and different choices, etc., then it's good to compare. But I guess that everyone has to try and see what works. I don't have really a clear-cut answer for that. But the idea is that at the end, we're able to take all the nuances from the Tibetan into our languages. So, okay. So once again, today we managed to be half an hour late. Shall we, is there anything else? Or shall we stop here? Yeah. Okay, and then let's make a dedication. Samnandiyan Punje Zubanya Tunanya Ban Ranam Punjation Jangana Jambalon Trubai Siban Solando Groweration. Thanks to you.
From now on, are we going to have an hour break, or we start at 2?
Yes, we're going to, Damian is invited at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Yes. So, yeah, I'm sorry about
that's in 1 hour, right?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Is that in 1 hour?
I'm a little bit lost with the different time zones.
You just tell me how, is it in 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours? Then I know.
Yeah, it will be, I think, in 1 hour, right?
Okay.
I have to check myself, actually. I'm very bad with time.
Half an hour.
It's less than half an hour. It's
Half an hour.
25 minutes.
25 minutes.
Thank you.
Or maybe I can ask Damien if he can come a little bit later. Would that be better for you?
I think half an
Yes.
hour is fine.
Well, it all depends on the time zone, but
Yes. Yeah, but
as you like.
in Spain, yeah, maybe it's better. Can I ask him to come in 1 hour from now?
That would be good for us, but whatever the majority says.
For me, it would be good like to keep because I have a translation to do like it. So if you could keep the time we scheduled before.
Okay.
I don't know what's better for everybody.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah, I think we could keep the schedule. If it's okay.
Okay, then let's do that. Yeah. Sorry, Elisa.
It's okay.
See you later.